Happy Thursday to everybody. This is Greg Warner. I'm the CEO of MarketSmart. Usually I like to have one of my staff named Jeff Giannato do the emceeing of these kinds of webinars, but I'm so excited about this one. I thought I'd take the reins today. Gosh, I hope I don't mess it up. Even as much of a technologist as I am, sometimes I can be all thumbs. But welcome today. I'm so happy for you to join us. Today we're going to be looking at inside the mind of your major donor. It's the science behind major giving and philanthropy, presented by our friend Melissa Brown. With 10 years of experience at giving you, go ahead. Sorry, Melissa, I paused there.
I just said hi. That's
She
okay.
said hi. With 10, I was going to tell everybody how awesome you are. With 10 years of experience at Giving USA's Advisory Council on Methodology, Melissa S. Brown helps charities turn knowledge into action. Her consulting services range from literature reviews to survey design and reports. Her major projects include the Nonprofit Research Collaborative, a twice-annual survey to assess what works in fundraising. She teaches for the Fundraising School and presents both online and in person. She also works with AFP Research Council and the Association of Philanthropic Counsel, who are our co-sponsors for this, who we thank very much for their involvement with us. Before founding her firm, Melissa, in 2011, worked at the Indiana University Lilly Family School of Philanthropy, which I'm sure everybody knows, where she edited Giving USA. She studied at Reed College and the University of Pennsylvania. In addition to research and writing, Melissa enjoys gardening and bird watching. In her dreams, she travels to Costa Rica, where it never rains and every bird she sees poses for a perfect photo. Just so everyone knows, that's Melissa's introduction. At the very end, I will be presenting some new things and some new technologies, especially one that's really fabulous that we need some beta testers for. So I hope you'll stick around after the Q&A with Melissa so that you can see what we're up to here at MarketSmart. So now, without further ado, I'm going to pass along the presenting ability to Melissa.
Great. Thanks so much, Greg. And I'm very excited to see the preview that you have for our audience about the fundraising report card. I'm looking forward to that a lot. Hello, everyone. I am Melissa Brown. You heard more about me than you needed to know. One of the key things is that I am a researcher. Today, I'll be talking about the science behind major giving and philanthropy. Philanthropy didn't fit on the line there, so we'll just have to make do with the way it goes on the slide. My little company focuses on studies, surveys, and this particular kind of research, which is a sort of literature review. We really analyze trends or key facts, and we try to present the summaries for you in action format. We specialize in content from multiple sources. So in this case, we're going to do some literature reviews, we have some data, and some recommendations from practitioners are incorporated here as well into one story, we hope. And all of this is trying to help you turn everything that you learn into action steps, is trying to do the content for you so you can take it to the next level and share it with your organization to actually put it into practice. One of the things that has become very, very clear from the research that I've done and that others have done is that successful fundraising organizations really put a priority on learning and on improving their practice. So it's just so important to try to hone your skills, and it's terrific that you're here to do that today. Successful organizations also invest in fundraising. Sometimes organizations cut fundraising when times are tough, and it's amazing they've become so disappointed when the dollars they receive go down. But I can tell you that it's almost guaranteed you have to invest in order to generate positive results. And that's true for the activities themselves, and also investing in the staff training, and paying staff to do the work. And successful organizations engage their board and other leading volunteers in very concrete ways. And some of that we'll talk about a little bit today. So thank you for being here. You're making an investment in your own professional development and also in your organization's future success. And I'm really glad that you're here. You'll see down in the left-hand corner that this some of this content that on this slide is from the Major Gift Report. Throughout, I do have the source information presented in the lower left corner, and there is a resources page, and I know that Greg's team will later be putting together some material to share with the people who attended today and others who couldn't attend but signed up anyway. So that's your cue for where to find more of the information that I speak about if you wanted to dig into it further yourself. So just a brief overview, we're going to look at some charitable giving data a little bit, just a little bit, I promise, and also information about giving motives that has emerged from research that's been done over the past 50 years or so by people in a variety of different fields. We're also going to look at some of the recent findings about what donors want. A lot of that is coming from communications and marketing. It hasn't really hit the mainstream yet. I haven't seen a lot of this work in the public domain available for us as fundraisers. So I'm really excited to share some of these findings with you because it really makes a difference, I think, in how we tell our story. I'm going to show some of the communications that are working in the field and also in the research context. And those are the ones that I'm hoping that you'll be able to put into practice yourself in your own organizations. And I'd always love to hear from you. If something works, that's great. If something doesn't work, yeah, I'd like to hear that too. That's really good to know. To have that feedback loop close is terrific. So first, let's look at some of the giving data and some of the giving motives that we know from studies. Mostly, let's look at major gifts. We know a lot of information about household giving in the United States from a number of different sources. These particular data come from the Internal Revenue Service, so it's based on what people itemize on their tax returns. We know that the households above $75,000 in income, up to around $200,000, that's about 17% of the households in the country, and most of them are donors. 70 or 80% of those are itemizing some kind of charitable giving on their tax return. Based on a household survey, not tax data, but a survey from the Lilly Family School of Philanthropy, a typical big gift for households in this income range would be around $1,000. That would be maybe a gift that they'd give every year, and every 5 or 10 years they might give a much bigger gift than that, but that would be a fairly typical large gift. The next tier of income is about $200,000 up to $1 million in income. And that's about 4% of all the households in the United States in that income range. And almost all of them are giving, 95, 98%, itemizing on their tax returns. And we have information about their large giving, their 5-figure gifts, and those seem to come about every 5 years. They tend to be making a $10,000 or above gift every 5 years or so, whether it's to a campaign or a very large form of support for operating funds. So just keep in mind that there's different sizes of major gift depending upon the type of organization you represent. I've worked in places where $1,000 would have been a fabulous gift, one of the biggest gifts we ever got. And certainly I've worked in places where $25,000 would be a relatively small gift, even if it was a major gift. Major gifts in those organizations might be $10 million. So it really depends on the type of organization you represent, what you consider a major gift. You will note this chart has some room at the bottom, and that's for the $1 million and up income category. That is the 0.01% of households in this country, and they are regular donors of 5-figure and up gifts. These are the household names, the Forbes 400, the Giving Pledge people, and others who are giving regular gifts where an annual fund gift might be $10,000 and a major gift might be several million from a household of this kind. So there are several different levels of major gifts. It really depends on your organization and what you consider to be major and how you interpret some of this information. The one thing that is important is that it won't matter the income level. Some of the science about motivations remains the same across all these income levels. The highest net worth donors have been studied by the Lilly Family School of Philanthropy in their biennial Bank of America study. Almost all of those are giving. The most recent results were for almost $70,000 in 1 year of giving. And here's the kicker. Those gifts were distributed among many organizations. So it might have been $70,000 total on average for each one of these households, but 85% of them were giving to education. Another 81% of those households were giving for helping meet people's basic needs, food, shelter, that sort of thing. 70% were giving for the arts, 67% were giving for religion, and another 60, or many times the same, but another 67% were giving to health. So what you can see is that these major, very high net worth households are giving to lots of different kinds of charity at once. This might be one reason why some of those major gifts are every 5 years. They're trying to distribute them around where they're sitting on boards or where they're very active volunteers. So when you think about making your case, think about who else those donors are hearing from and what kinds of messages they're getting from the other organizations that are also looking to them for major gifts. And keeping that in mind, always trying to keep the donor's perspective in mind, is one of my key points today. So I wanted to really showcase that by the fact that these very high net worth households are hearing from many, many giving opportunities in the course of a year. When donors talk about what they want, and this has happened in survey after survey, they say they want impact. It's one of the very first things. They want to make a difference. They want to transform people's lives. They also talk about financial accountability, which is interesting because we don't see that actually when they're making gifts in some cases, but we hear it before they make the gift. They do a sort of litmus test. If the organization is really important enough for them to consider the impact, then they've already screened it for financial accountability. And they're also very interested in stewardship and recognition procedures. They want their names to be right. They want to be offered opportunities to be recognized or not. We'll explore that a little more in a bit. So donors are very upfront. They know right from the top they want impact. They want financial accountability, transparency from the organizations that they support, and they're interested in understanding what their options are in terms of recognition and in stewardship. And we as organizations, of course, we spend a lot of time making sure that we can tell our impact stories, providing data about outcomes and outcome measures. We also share lots of information about financials and about our overhead rates. Some of the research is indicating that some of that might be a little bit too much information, and we'll get to that in a moment. But I can say for sure that the outcomes and the stories of impact will remain important throughout this analysis of the research findings. So definitely focus on impact and stewardship as being two messages that you want to continue in all your communications with donors. There is a set of papers that were put out by some scholars who looked at worldwide studies of giving conducted before I was born, so more than 50 years ago, and they have found 4 different sets of motivations. Now I've collapsed them into 4. They actually find 8, but I put them into 4 to make it easier to remember. One of them is identity. You can imagine the people whose family member has been affected by a certain circumstance. That's a form of identity. Another is imagination, thinking about what the world could be like in the future. The third is impact, which we've talked a little bit about, and most of us track in our measures, our outcome measures, or our performance measures. And then they have in image, and this is where there's self-image, perception of myself, and there's also a perception of how I want to be perceived in the world. So let's talk about these a little further. All of these are things that you can hear in conversation when you're developing a relationship with the donor. The donor will use key words that will clue you in to the kind of values or motivations that are bringing that donor into a relationship with you. So I'm encouraging people to listen for some of these keywords, and we'll go through each of these 4 in turn, and share some of the keywords for these. So for identification, I belong. This group is part of my life. We want to know what's going on that's part of this group that I'm part of. So I know someone, or I myself have been affected by this circumstance, whether it's a life condition or whether it's an alma mater of an institution or a member of a particular faith group. It's part of who I am. Or it was what I was before. I didn't get to finish 8th grade, or that's a very well-known donor, wanted to support higher education because he could not go to college. So remembering what the barriers were that this person faced in the past helped inspire his giving in the future. He gave to Brown University. Or as I might have been if someone else hadn't helped me. So this is sometimes, some of these keywords are giving back, or gratitude, or paying it forward, or preventing, curing situations that are a problem for somebody. So those are some keywords to listen for when you're listening for donors who are concerned about identification or belonging. Let's look next at imagination. This is the sense of moral imagination. I trust you with my values. I trust you to share my perspective, my sense of empathy about how the world could be better if only we could do this particular action. As a vision for the future, eradicating diseases. There are many donors now who are very interested in eradicating serious illnesses around the world. That's a vision of the future, a sense of imagination and capacity. This is summed up in a quotation that I heard many years ago. It was written in a Lutheran publication. I do not know who said it, but it was somebody who was involved with the Lutheran Church, and this individual said, "Money is me where I cannot be." So I can't go and eradicate guinea worm. I can't go and develop the vaccines for malaria, but I can give my money, and through that I can envision a future where I'm playing a part in the betterment of the world for somebody else. I've never been affected by those, but I can imagine the future in a better way for other people. Sample words would be, just think what life could be like, or if only we could, or maybe what if every child could read by 3rd grade? What if we had a 98% graduation rate from high school? Those are the kinds of keywords that speak to imagination and a sense of vision for other people, for circumstances that aren't my own, but that I can see somebody else benefiting from. The third category that I created out of the 8 that my friends Renee and Pamela came up with is that sense of impact. Together, let's change this problem, this condition. Show me how my gift will matter. How many children can I educate? How many people will I reach with anti-mosquito nets to prevent malaria? How will my gift matter in the long run and in the short run? Prove to me that your organization is actually going to be there long enough to make this change happen. So this is actually a very prominent motivation that people articulate a lot, right? So they're saying, tell me how you're going to do this. What's the evidence for this approach versus that approach? What is the cost per unit of service? Or if I give you X amount, whatever that is, then what will you deliver? So they're really looking at impact, having a concern for the ROI, if you will, through this way of giving. And the fourth category is image. This one's a little more complex because it has 2 sides to it. You will help me affirm the good that I see in myself. I think I'm a good person. Might not always show it to the rest of the world, but at heart I'm a really good person. And one way I will demonstrate that is through my charitable giving. My giving can also influence how other people see me. Do they see me as being generous, as kind, as being an important leader in the community? Or is this a way that I leave a meaningful legacy after the end of a long and rich life? This is my way of being memorialized, and certainly you can think of donors who have taken this approach, whose names are still on large buildings and foundations now. So some of the key words here are, who else am I going to be listed with? Which grouping will my name appear in? Or I want to set an example. Or how can I put my name, or maybe my grandfather's name, or my aunt's name on this particular structure as a way to not only bolster my image in other people's eyes, but also in my own heart about how I see myself. So I think keeping these 4 levels of identity, imagination, impact, and image is very important. And doing that with all major gift prospects at different financial levels of capacity. They might have slightly different expectations, but they're all all of those types of impact will matter. Types of motivation will matter for them. So listen for the words that they're using and key your relationship building based on what they're bringing to the table. what do donors really want? These are kind of subtle aspects of motivation, and not every donor will be able to articulate them. They might say those words, whose name will be on the list, or I want to honor my aunt. But what do they really want? What does research show? Well, this is a dissertation that was done, and these major donors this young man interviewed, their values aligned with the mission. That's very clear. You won't give to an organization where you don't believe in the organization's work. They had esteem for the leadership. That's certainly one of the key questions we ask when we do feasibility studies, but it's also true for ordinary annual fund gifts that have several zeros in them. People respect the leadership of the institution. They feel personally involved. In this case, we have a lady who's volunteering at the Shed Aquarium in Chicago. Personal involvement matters tremendously. And they've been asked. We've heard that over and over. The three major reasons why people give to charity is they've been asked, and they've been asked. We have to find ways to ask our major donors to be involved and to reflect their values through their giving. This is from a different study, the Major Gift Report that came out last year. And this is what one donor said. I don't give because of your mission. I give because of my mission. I am really looking for a group that can help me meet my mission. And I think that from all the people I've spoken with and all the research I've done, this is increasingly what we're seeing. Research is showing that major donors want to feel good about their relationship with the institution. They want to trust the institution. They want to know about the outcomes. But basically, they're looking to that organization to help them realize their own mission in life. So donors come to you with their own mission. That's the donors circle. Their personal mission, life story, their identity, their imagination and vision of the future, desire for impact, the self-image, and their desired public image. That's all part of what the donor's bringing to the table. And your organization, you're taking your mission. What's your organization, the cause or need that your organization is addressing? All the programs and evidence that you have for why they work and why they're important to offer. The accountability and trustworthiness that you can demonstrate as an entity for your work and why the donor should share with you the pursuit of this shared goal or this vision, and the systems that you have that facilitate good stewardship. Now remember, those donors have lots and lots of opportunities to give to many different types of charity. So for you to be, quote, the winning charity in any one year, you need to show that donor that you have earned his or her respect and trust, that your leadership is capable of implementing the vision and demonstrating the continued trustworthiness that donor will value, and that your organization can deliver the recognition and stewardship that donor wants. So it's this overlap. It's not necessarily the overlap in the programs and evidence or the overlap in the cause or need. It's really the overlap in trust and values and respect to pursue a vision together. It's one of the terms for it now is co-creating the future, how the donor will collaborate with your organization to address the problem that you both see in the world. So in short, we're trying to build partnerships with donors to work together to reach a shared vision of change. We are not taking our goals and saying, here, will you support our goals? We're going and saying, we both want to reach this shared vision of what the future's like. Here's what we can offer. What do you see as your contribution? It might be money, might be leadership, might be connections, might be other talents. Donors want to be involved in all different aspects of that now. We demonstrate through our actions and our communications the strength of our organization's capacity. And this is one reason the entire organization is involved as a steward of the donor's values. Not necessarily the donor's money, although that too, but really the steward of the values that the organization shares. Respect, accountability, stewardship, all of those things are everybody's work. So how do we express that? What are the communications that we can rely on that will really make a difference for donors? Well, additional research, this is again in the communications field, this is another dissertation. Major donors consider that we as nonprofits earn their respect and trust. They don't start out giving it to us. We have to demonstrate it first. Seems obvious, but it's actually been demonstrated through research. Sometimes that can help an organization overcome some barriers to investment if they know it's demonstrated through research. The organization is concerned with the donor's interests and expectations, not so much with the organization's bottom line. It's really, how do we help that donor realize his or her mission and how they want to be perceived in the world and the change they want to bring about. To the extent that we can provide donors with personalized attention, they value that a lot. Regular communications, not every day, maybe every 6 weeks, maybe every 3 months, it depends, but regular communications so that donors know that we are paying attention to their needs. Thanking donors sincerely and as many different ways as possible that's appropriate is also an important thing. Sometimes donors forget that they got the letter, but they'll remember the telephone call from a board member. So finding different ways to express our thanks is also important. And then, of course, that responsibility of using the gifts as the donor intends is a very important part of our accountability and our transparency. It's demanded by our donors currently. Focusing everything on the relationship and not on getting the gift. This is really a shift from how a lot of major gift fundraising has occurred in the past. It's been structured on moves management and getting to the ask. Most of the research now is showing that if donors are involved, if they felt like they're heard in conversations, they will almost naturally offer gifts because they feel like our work is so important. It helps them advance their personal missions. So providing those multiple avenues for participation is really important. Volunteering, serving on committees, participating in events, giving money, and many other things. It depends on the type of mission that you're serving in your organization. Finding multiple ways for donors to be involved is part of nurturing that relationship. And the gift follows as a result of that relationship. So the whole process is really about absorbing that donor as a member of your organizational family, if you will. In fact, one of my colleagues calls philanthropy synthetic family, making the donor feel loved as if he or she is a family member, and the donor feels toward us as if our organization is part of his or her family. This work is from Presco. So here's an example of a conversation. This is, again, a dissertation done in the communications discipline. So you appeal first to the donor's emotions, that sense of identity. Listen for where that donor has a sense of his or her self-image, or how they want to project themselves in the world. Follow up on their expressions of imagination. Just think how the world would be different if. Those are all emotional statements, and donors act from emotion. Listen for what your donors say. Document what they say. This person talked about the importance of his or her experience as a child doing this and such. That's an emotional statement that matters to that donor's motivations. Absolutely, we need the facts and the figures. We need the impact stories. We need the written materials. All of those appeal to the intellect, and donors will often say they're giving from intellect, but we hear over and over in our conversations that they're really responding to that emotional feeling and then choosing maybe a particular structure of a gift or a particular amount of a gift based on the intellectual content that we're sharing. Both are important, but having the conversation so that it goes over time so that both of those come out, the emotional side, and we're listening to the donor, that co-creating aspect, listening to what the donor wants, and then offering the material for the intellect as well. One of my colleagues says that she presents a menu for donors. Lots of different opportunities, and this is actually shown in research as well. Donors who are given a choice of gift levels and different components or aspects of an organization's work that they can support, different projects, are more likely to give the first time. They're more likely to give again and at a higher level the second time. validated by research. So starting with the menu is a great approach with a range of gift levels, a range of different types of investments. Some of them are very explicit about the donor's interests. Again, keep in mind those 4 things: identity, imagination, impact, and image. And of course, include your organizational priorities. If the donor is going off into something that's not in your mission, then you can either help them find something else that will suit their mission or see if there's a way to bring them back to what your priorities are. But having a menu is a very important option. When you get to the point where the donor said, yes, I really want to make a gift, I don't know how much, I don't know how, then having somebody on your team who can talk about different ways of giving is really important. There's a lot of different channels now, and some donors are flummoxed by that. They need somebody to help coach them through, well, do you have a donor advised fund? How would you make a gift through that? Do you want to create a trust? What are the different benefits of the different kinds of trusts? Is this time for a blended gift? Do you want to do some cash now and some planned gift that has a future maturation for the organization? Having somebody who can present those options is a very important aspect to have on your team. It doesn't have to be a paid staff member. It could be a board member. It could be a community foundation you work with. Somebody who knows about these different options is important. And somebody needs to know about taxes. Donors say they don't care about taxes, but every bit of evidence that we have about what donors actually do shows that tax benefits make a difference. So the higher the tax benefits, the more likely you are to have a larger gift from that particular donor. So having somebody who knows what some of the tax advantages are, some of the tax advantaged structures that donors can use, can be an asset. Again, your community foundation, if you don't have this expertise on your staff, a community foundation in your area is often willing to work with you to help donors create gifts so that your organization has somebody who's speaking from the organizational side and not just from the donor's financial advisor or wealth advisor helping to structure a gift. So it's important to have the organization represented at the table there. Trust and satisfaction with the organization in executing the gift is one of the strongest predictors of who will be involved over time. When donors get to the point where they want to make a gift, they are then the satisfaction with how the process goes, the structuring, how quickly things can move along are very strong predictors of future involvement. So continuing to think of the donor as a partner in mission delivery, that you have timely and donor-specific recognition processes, that the processes for reporting the gift and how the gift gets used are also very smooth running, and that you have continued communications. I heard a horror story about a city in Texas that raised an amount for an auditorium, and they had a named room in this auditorium. For one reason or another, that room did not get built with that person's name on it. That donor was so mad. He read about it in the paper. Nobody had thought to call him. Don't be that type of organization. Anticipate issues that before they come up and talk with the donor so that you don't have that kind of terrible feeling about your donor calling and saying, what the heck is happening? That's not right. So continued communication and structuring the gift well in the first place so that it goes smoothly. The donor feels like the organization is a well-oiled machine to get this all done. And that includes recognition, being able to tailor the recognition for the donor's preferences. Some will want very public acknowledgement, some won't. Some will want something back, access or tickets or parking spots, whatever, and some won't. So being able to respond to both of those is important. Donors say they didn't get thanked, and sometimes they were, but they don't remember it. So having everybody in your organization be aware, especially if it's a major gift. Mrs. Brown, so good to see you. We're so thankful for the gift that you made in honor of your grandfather. So that it's the receptionist, it's the president of the institution, it's the faculty member who's using that classroom. Those are the kinds of people who have to be alerted to the possibility of saying thank you. And then, of course, knowing what the donor wants. You just ask sometimes, What would most satisfy you? If you could think of the best way to be recognized, what would it look like? Sometimes donors will come up with fabulous ideas that you never would have thought of. Continued satisfaction, I go back again. We are partners for the donor's vision about delivering the mission. We don't want to compromise our mission. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that we need to establish ourselves as partners so that the donors feel like they are walking arm in arm with us toward this shared vision of a more prosperous or improved future for other people. So here are some ideas that I've seen in action. Thank you from the beneficiaries, the school children who received the musical instruments in that program, the scholarship recipients, the homeless family that was able to receive housing because of a major gift to a program that serves people who are homeless. Thank you from the beneficiaries is a tremendous way to show appreciation. Inviting the donor to have input before changes are made. Oh gosh, we can't keep offering the scholarship in your grandfather's name, Melissa, but because of whatever, but we'd like to continue offering something. So how could we restructure it so that you're comfortable with it? Mission-related items or messaging. People love things that actually convey back to them which motive triggered their gift. Was it identity? Was it imagination? Was it impact? Was it their image? And whatever it is, if it's image, you're going to give them a little glass sculpture with their name on it. That's terrific. In my case, I might have given to Big Sisters years ago. This actually happened. I gave to Big Sisters of Central Indiana. I got a hand-drawn picture from a little sister of her depiction of the first time she met her big sister. 25 years later, I still have that picture hanging on my wall. That meant so much to me. So some kind of mission-related content, if you can do it, is fabulous. And we hear this from donors over and over. They want to feel special. They want some kind of behind-the-scenes tours. They want to meet the researcher in the science lab. They want to be on the ground planting the daffodil bulbs in the Keep Indianapolis Beautiful. They want to have small meetings with leadership so they can influence the direction of the organization. All of those are ways to help the donor feel like he or she is in contact with the organization and its future development. So, engage donors in multiple ways. Seems obvious, but lots of organizations struggle to do this. So I'm challenging you to find the ways that work for you. Focus on relationship nurturing. Co-create a vision of the future. Don't compromise your mission, but invite donors to share in the task of what they can do. And participate in all aspects of the organization. If you have curators in a museum, or faculty members or volunteers working with the kids, involve people at all different levels in the organization to help you think about ways to engage donors. Now, I hinted at this earlier. There is some research that says that if you give donors financial information when they haven't asked for it, it could have a negative influence on their level of satisfaction for your organization's performance. It's as if somebody says, thank you so much for helping me, and then you offer to give them $1 for their help. It's like you took away that sense of really great feeling that they had for helping you by turning it into a financial transaction. So by all means, you need to have the information. There are donors who will ask for it. If they ask for it, give it to them. No problem. But if they don't ask for it, don't give it to them, because you're turning it into a commercial transaction almost, something that is really felt from the heart, and mixing motives for giving in that case. How do you put this into practice? This is a lot of stuff going on here. So let's talk about that briefly. There's a prominent author named Kathleen Kelly who wrote a book in the late 1990s, and she came up with the concept of 4 different roles on a development team. And then another researcher more recently has worked with her, and they have actually found that these work in practice, and they've tested it. So here are the 4 roles. The first one is the liaison or the catalyst, somebody who helps the donor see that those overlapping circles in that Venn diagram, where the donor's mission and vision for the future overlaps with your organization's capacity and promise. So somebody who can see that, who can help the donor feel that passion, is a really important person on the team. Then there's the technician, the person who helps structure the gift, the person who helps think about the tax consequences and the timing and whether it's going to be a blended gift or all paid out in cash or a stock transfer, whatever. Those might be the same people. It might be one person who can do both of those things. There might be different people who do those things. That's okay. It doesn't matter who does it, as long as both of these skills are on the team. Then there's the kind of problem-solving facilitator who comes in. The donor comes in and says, well, gosh, I wanted to make this major gift, but one of my kids is really frustrated with this because he thinks that this will compromise his inheritance, and I just don't know how to talk to him about it. So a problem-solving facilitator would be another set of skills to bring into the organization or to have in yourself as a major gift giving officer to help the donor think through how to solve that problem. It could be any problem. It could be an institutional barrier. It could be a family issue. It could be the wealth manager who says, I don't think you should do that. Some kind of individual or skill set to help solve problems. And then the ongoing relationship-focused connector. And the research shows that this person, or the person who holds this role, has connections throughout the organization to help the donor find ways to be involved in multiple ways beyond giving money. This goes right back to helping donors find different ways of being engaged with delivering the organization's mission. So being able to integrate all these parts together, is whether it's one person or multiple people playing these roles, it doesn't really matter as long as all of them are deliberately thought about and part of your team's work. And this is, again, from the work of Kathleen Kelly. She's been helped by Mr. Waters and Ms. Walker. And then it's also shown in some work by Ryan. Again, I give you those citations so that you can go back to your organization and say, look, we need to build up our skills in this area or that area, and here's some of the resources about why. There's additional research that shows that you will benefit if you have diverse skills on your team, and that is more likely to drive success. So everybody needs to have commitment to the major gift function. That's very clear. Everybody needs to have listening and sharing skills so they can hear those key words that donors talk about, so they can share the information back with the donors and with the other team members. And they need wide-ranging connections within your organization, the kind of people who go around and hear about, oh gosh, so-and-so is doing this cool thing in their lab. We really need to involve him in some of our outreach, that kind of thing. So the more different skill sets that you have on your team, whether they're multiple individuals or a couple individuals, each of whom is very flexible, the more likely you are to succeed. And again, this is supported by research, so think about that as you're structuring your team for what skills you might need. Of course, one of the resources for getting skills is from your board. And board members can bring all different kinds of skill sets that they often don't realize that they can contribute. So sometimes we need to do a little coaching. They have tremendous stories. Remember that emotional content that helps donors get involved? Board members can share their stories, their personal accounts of what they've seen in their engagement with the organization and help contribute that emotional depth. That's very important. They can demonstrate through their own leadership the reasons why we trust this organization, why we have faith in the leadership, who's the people who are in charge, entrusted with our funds and with the organization's future. This is the very typical understanding of a board member role, to know possible donors, of course. We ask our board members often for referrals. They can help us meet potential donors, whether it's an institutional donor, corporation or foundation, or whether it's an individual donor, or sometimes just hosting an event where we all can meet potential donors all at once. Some board members are willing to make a request of one of their peers, and again, that's a coaching process. Sometimes we have to coach people to feel more comfortable with that. And all board members have the capacity to thank donors as sincerely and as deeply as appropriate for that particular donor. So helping board members have a regular role in stewardship is a very important component of our work. Sometimes we take the list of the recent major gifts to the board meeting, and each board member pulls out his or her cell phone and makes the calls, whatever, tells a few stories and makes a few calls to thank people for their gifts. Very easy way to involve board members, and one that they're often very willing to do. When we're working with our board, it might help, especially if you're in a role to help influence recruitment for the board, to know that fundraising results are stronger at colleges, at least, when the board itself had more members from outside the alumni group. Basically, it expanded the network of people, that prospective donors that the board could reach. Again, this seems obvious, but I've certainly seen many social service boards that are made up of social service providers instead of people in the community who benefit from those services directly or indirectly. So helping whoever's on the nominating committee look outside the typical network for that organization to find outside members to increase the organization's reach and amplify its message can be an important part of major gift fundraising. Also, it's important to recognize that not every board member needs to do every one of those things that I had on the prior slide. Some will be better at some things than at others. And there's a trend now to have board members have customized lists of how they will help the organization with fundraising. Some might invite their company co-workers to events and ask for a few gifts. Some might only be involved in stewardship and in sharing their stories, but you can customize it based on the board members' capacity and interests, and then essentially have a contract for that year's service for how the board member will fulfill his or her obligations for the organization. And of course, you need to train people in whatever you're asking them to do. So I'm going to leave that as an obvious statement without any explanation. When you prepare all of this, you are going to need to have ways to keep that menu of opportunities fresh. It's not enough to just develop it once. It has to be maintained. It's the seasonal offerings, if you will, just like in a restaurant, have to be updated. Again, having a range of gift options available. One set of researchers found that a so-called trial gift at a lower level leads to substantial investment later on. So just as my first date with my husband was going to a movie, a very low-level commitment. We also have low-level commitments for donors so that they can test out the nature of the relationship, make sure we deliver what we say we're going to deliver, and so forth. And then we need the leadership and the processes for developing trust, because we earn trust and satisfaction. It is not assumed. We earn it and we demonstrate it through our work every day. This is just an example. It's not necessarily everybody's organization, but in many large organizations, a third of the people on a major gift person's portfolio will be at the cultivation phase, where they haven't yet been asked for a gift, but they're being encouraged to be involved, given involvement opportunities. A third are actually at the point where they have been asked or they're about to be asked, and they're structuring a gift, they're thinking about a gift, they're in the process of signing a major gift form, a major gift agreement, and then a third are in stewardship, some kind of process or phase where they are remaining involved in an ongoing basis, but they after a gift they've already made. Of course, it's a cycle, so they kind of overlap. The cultivation and stewardship processes are, they overlap at the top there a little bit as well. A typical portfolio in a large organization might be 150 prospects. In a small organization, it might be 10. It depends on your organization, it depends upon what you consider a major gift to be, and it depends on what other responsibilities the staff member has. Some major gift officers also do annual fund, also do proposals and so forth, and some are only major gift officers. So there's no hard and fast rule about that. It is essential that you know your donors. I cannot stress this enough, that you listen to what they say, that you hear what they talk about their motivations to be. As much as possible, do the prospect research. This pays off. And this is again shown in research, that if you can identify their giving priorities in the past, you can identify their potential capacity now, you can qualify prospects, make sure they're the right people to be spending time and effort on, it will pay off in terms of improved fundraising results in the future. One of the key things is to know if the donor has connections. How much is the donor involved through their family in your cause or institution. Identity is one of the most powerful motivators out there. Somebody I know has been affected by this. My grandfather taught at that institution. I want to be involved, and so that is how I will meet my mission. You're going to document your conversations and relationships, and it's going to be a fair kind of documentation. The rule is the donor should never see anything in his or her file that would cause embarrassment to you or to the donor. And it's also important that you ask a prospective donor back in that cultivation phase if there's anyone else who needs to be involved. Don't make assumptions. Do they have family members they want to involve? Is there a professional advisor, a wealth advisor, a financial advisor, a lawyer that they want to involve? And here's another quick horror story. A woman inherited a great deal of wealth, and the institution she was working with invited her to a meeting with her financial advisor. She was so insulted that they would not talk to her as an independent adult human being that she never gave them another nickel. She moved all of her philanthropic giving to other organizations. So make no assumptions. Always inquire gently about if there's some people want to involve others. Is there anyone else you would like to involve in this particular discussion? There are important resources to help you in this work. It's not all that personal dialogue, listening to your donor. You need a really good data system, and you need good people to help you put the data in, code the conversations so that you can find it again. You can use surveys to get information from donors about things that might be similar for many donors, but you don't have necessarily, you don't want to collect it all one conversation at a time. You know, whether or not they have children, whether or not what year they graduated from college, things like that you can get from a survey. You can use wealth screening tools to help you qualify prospects. Are they really capable of the size of gift that we think they're capable of? And there are products out there that you can use to do that. And of course, investing in additional training, as we discussed at the very beginning, is a great way to help improve your fundraising results. So I mentioned surveys, and I hear a lot, because I do them, oh, people hate surveys. They never open surveys. But that's not true. I have a friend who says she hates animals, but anytime she sees a puppy or a kitten on Facebook, she's putting a like symbol by it. So people might hate surveys in principle, but your survey, because they know your organization, they are likely to look at it. So people actually love to be asked about themselves. They love to tell you about their preferences, and don't mail to me every month, mail to me every 6 months, or whatever. So it's like the puppy or the kitten, you know. They will feel valued because you shared with them a chance to share their opinions. It's involving them as co-creators. And in fact, MarketSmart is one of the organizations that's one of the best out there for doing surveys. I work with them, and I work with other organizations as well, but I very, very highly respect what Greg and his team are doing. So I want to give them a shout out for their work. So that gives you sort of a summary of what I've seen in the literature, a lot of it in literature that hasn't even hit the mainstream press yet, about how to work with major gifts prospects. They want us to earn their trust. They want us to help them fulfill their own missions in life, and they want to see us as partners toward a shared vision of the future. They are not our ATM. They are not our prospects. They are our partners. So the rest of this is just thank you to all the people who helped on this, and there are many there. And then I've got 3 pages of resources that I won't go through. So I want to turn it over and see if there are questions, and if anything has come through for Greg, so go for it.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Melissa, and thank you for that, I guess it was a shameless plug.
You guys are great. I mean, I'm honest about that.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. There are a handful of questions, and folks, if you want to send more in, that would be terrific. I'm gonna go ahead and just jump right into those. But remember, stick around if you want to see just a couple of really interesting things that we're working on here technologically that are going to be groundbreaking. Okay, so the first one, I think, well, some of these are pretty challenging and interesting, really. I hope this one's a softball. The first question is, how many major donors should one fundraiser manage in their portfolio?
That's a good question, and there is no easy answer. It depends entirely on the size of the organization and the other responsibilities that the major gift officer has. The largest I've ever seen is 150. That was where it was a full-time major gift officer, and only a third of those people were actually in the asking phase. All the others were in stewardship or cultivation. And I've seen as few as 10.
Terrific. Okay, well, then number 2. Here we go. Okay, this one's a little tricky, at least for me. So hopefully you can help her. I'm a one-person shop, and I'm responsible for events in addition to major gifts. Any ideas on how I can raise more major gifts with so little time to meet with donors one-on-one?
This is going to sound really glib, but hire an events consultant to help with the events. Your fundraising results will come from major gifts, and it is probably worth the $5,000 or $10,000 it would take to hire somebody for a short term to organize some special events, particularly if some of those special events help you identify potential major gift prospects. You basically have to offload the time-consuming part to somebody who specializes in that. That's what it comes down to.
Excellent, thanks. All right, this one just came in, but I still have a couple more that were already previously there. How do you respond to a donor who is asking for a volunteer role that the institution cannot support or for which there is no current structure in place?
I guess I would ask the donor lots of questions about why that role is important and try to figure out if the purpose or intent behind the role can be addressed without actually creating the role itself. Again, not knowing enough about the circumstances. If somebody wants to become a veterinarian in a zoo and they have no qualifications, I mean, obviously that's not the same as I don't know, but as I would try to get at what kind of experience the donor really wants that's driving the interest.
Terrific, because maybe it's just a gentle little tweak that you can make.
Possibly, yeah, sure.
Okay, next, okay, I've heard this one before. Some of our board members do not donate and don't want to refer others or ask others to give. How can we inspire them to do one or all of those things?
Well, sometimes I've heard answers such as take a gift as low as $1. I think that's really a punt on that particular question. It doesn't seem to me to be a question of inspiration. It seems to be a question of recruitment. How committed are they to the mission? If they're not willing to put their own money in it or ask other people to do it, then they have to contribute to the mission in some other way. And if they can't do that, then they don't belong on the board. So that's probably a discussion between the chair and the chief officer of the organization to determine whether or not the individual be asked to identify other ways he or she can help achieve the mission or retire from the board.
Terrific. I have heard that exact answer many, many times, and I've heard people say in board meetings, I don't give, but I give my time. And sometimes that's in fact more valuable than the money. Okay, so we got a couple more. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay. I was just affirming what you said.
Oh, okay. Okay, this one's, let's see. I'm sorry. We received a large bequest gift that the attorney said was to remain anonymous, but we found out who it came from. Our leadership wants us to reach out to the remaining family members. Should we do that? I think I'm reading between the lines here, thinking that maybe they think that the remaining family members might have the same passion.
Or just to say thank you. I'm going to say no. You could go to the attorney and say, we are very grateful for this gift, and since you know who the donor is, if you could extend our gratitude to his or her other heirs, that'd be great. And we welcome their involvement if they wish to come forward. But I would never go to them directly if the donor wants to remain anonymous. I think that would breach the terms of the gift.
I agree. More questions keep rolling in, and folks keep sending them if you want. This is great.
Sure.
So let's see. I've seen mixed research about charity ratings and how much of an influence they have on donor giving decisions. What's your sense of how big a factor ratings are on donor giving, or is it different for smaller annual donors and major donors?
Yes, yes, and yes. Sorry. The most recent report that I saw was put out by, it used to be Hope Consulting. I think it's now called Caliber. And they reported that 9% of the donors that they included in their survey said that they did some kind of comparison between charities before making a charitable gift. That's up from 3% when Hope Consulting did the first research for GuideStar in 2010. So it's been a threefold growth in 5 or 6 years, but it started really low. Now, that's not all donors. There are some donors who are remarkably attentive to research, and there are some donors who really care about who the people are and what the value of the organization is. I'm going to go right back to the topic, know your donors. Know who supports you, know why they support you, and you will likely get other donors from that particular type of individual rather than investing in a new process entirely.
Terrific. Okay, so here's one that actually I am very biased in my response because I'll tell people to use our donor survey system, but I'll let you answer it. And since I did the plug, you don't have to unless you. So where do I go to start to identify major donors who are interested in giving to our organization? Our organization is over 100 years old with no volunteer base and no viably current data of recent major giving.
Okay, well, there's something you can do with your existing data, which is called a recency frequency monetary value assessment. If you have donors at any level, you can find out which ones are giving the most often, or giving the highest amounts, or in some cases giving very recently. And then from among those, you would send those out to a wealth screener and see if any of those have any deep capacity. I like Greg's idea of the surveying people and sort of having them self-identify as prospective donors at higher levels or deeply committed to your mission, something like that. And then also ask your current board members for referrals, although it's hard to recruit at the major donor level. It's better to recruit from within your ranks and find people who care about your mission a lot and then who have capacity. So that's kind of a broad answer, but the MarketSoft systems are also wonderful for helping because they track who's at your website. They give you a way to identify who's at your website, so you can then find people who are responding to your emails and your web posts, and then that helps you find potential major donors.
Indeed.
I hope I described that right.
Well, sort of.
Okay.
There's one more question here. There's actually two. There's one that says, can you clarify what she just said recently? But I don't know exactly. If you could retype that, Barbara, with regard to what you're talking about, and then we'll try and help you.
Yeah.
But then the only other question before we get into my little presentation, couple-minute presentation, is any research insights. I guess, is there any research insights that show changes over the last, say, 10 years due to an aging population? If so, has it changed how we should act?
Okay, that's my next book, so stay tuned. There have been changes, of course, as people. There are life cycle changes and there are generation changes. So people who are now in their 40s might be behaving differently in 10 years, more like people who are now in their 50s, if you see what I mean. But then there are people who are in their 40s who have certain attitudes and values that they've carried from their 20s. And it's a big, complex mix. So there's no one easy answer, but yes, stay tuned. The research has only started in this field in the last 10 or 15 years. So we're still learning a great deal, and there will be more to say going forward.
That's terrific. Well, thank you so much, Melissa. That exhausts our questions, and we had a lot of them.
Did Barbara send hers
Barbara
back?
did not respond again with what
Okay.
she was talking about, so I think I'll just move forward since we have so
Please
many
do.
people that have stuck around, which is very kind to hear the questions, and hopefully I'll take that as a compliment that they want to see what I've been talking about as far as technology goes.
I'm looking forward to it, so go for it. Thanks, Greg.
Oh, and I did hear, hold on, stick around though, because we have a couple more questions rolling in, but I'm going to go ahead with the technology part, and then we'll come back to a couple more questions.
Okay, I'll be here.
Okay, so what I wanted to talk about and what we need beta testers for is our latest product that we're creating, which is called the Fundraising Report Card. And you can, in fact, I'll go to the website where you can sign up to be a beta tester, and that's free, completely free. And in fact, I'm hoping, well, I want to make this product free for every fundraiser forever. There will be a paid version, but basically the idea is that you can sign up here on fundraisingreportcard.com, okay, fundraisingreportcard.com, and you just click the button and sign up. But the idea of this is that we will help fundraisers be able to upload their data. So all they need to do is drag and drop 3 data points. That is dates of gifts, the amount of each gift on that date, and the donor ID associated with each of those gifts. It's just 3 data points. And by doing so, you will be able to, it'll only take about 2 to 5 seconds. It turns all of your data into tremendously actionable charts. So here's an example, and you'll be able to toggle a certain number of years. So I'll just do that and only show a few years. And you could see that over the past few years for this organization, there is some growth. Then you can toggle between donations and donors. So when I say donations, you can see here in this year that the giving level above $5,000 per donation, 27% of the revenue from that year came from just 26 donors, or less than 1% of the 3,000 total donors. Now you can look down here and see that 48% of the donors, or 1,473 of them, are providing 31% of the revenue. So it's really fascinating when you start to see these different giving levels and you see how few people sometimes it takes to make a tremendous difference. Now you can toggle this and look at it from a the donor number, and now you see, of course, there's many more donors at the lower end and very few donors up at the top end. So I'll toggle it back. You could also, if you want to compare just the major gifts from these years, you could just do that. You could change it and look at different ways to view it, and then again maybe add on some different points. Okay, so these are also followed up down with a growth breakdown, and you can see the number of donations from year to year is either going up or down, and the number of donors is either going up and down. But that's just the first chart. So I won't bore everybody with every single chart, but I will mention that we've got all the highlights here, and we're adding new charts all the time based on user feedback. So we've got the acquisition charts, but in fact, I'm gonna go to the churn chart, which I think is really the most fascinating, and I'll just toggle on the past few years for that as well. And this is really quite fascinating because you could see here that for every $100 gained in 2014 for this client, they lost $113.60. Now, if we look at that from number of donors, for every 100 donors gained, they gained 92 donors, at least in this year. Or I'm sorry, they lost 92 donors in that current year. So you can really clearly see the churn, and then you can even take a look and see when you were losing donors and where they're coming from, whether they're high-level donors or low-level supporters. So there's a lot more in here, but I'm so excited about this, and we've gone through our first bit of beta testing, and we're very excited about that, and got a lot of great feedback. But if you want to be a beta tester, I hope you'll please go to fundraisingreportcard.com. And that's the end of my little presentation for the tech. Of course, we have our regular products and services, including the donor survey system, which has been called the most effective donor survey system. And now I'm going to just look and see what these other questions might have been. I guess I've already done that one. And I've already done that one. Okay, lots more questions keep rolling in. It looks like Melanie is asking, I'm new to fundraising, but I want to start building my relationships with donors. I want to know how to approach my boss on cultivating and actually having meetings.
So there's a great little book that's put out by Emerson Publishing called How to Raise $5,000, $5,000 to $5,000 from Almost Anybody, or something like that. It's a very short read. It's a very good introduction to how to have those conversations with donors, and then I think from that you could get some information about how to approach your boss. There are a number of other books about major gift fundraising, and I'm sure you find them through Amazon, and look for the ones with price tags that are in your range and enough stars to satisfy your reader satisfaction levels. But I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of the one by Emerson, other than how to ask for $5 to $5,000 from almost anyone, something like that.
Yeah, and in fact, there's a series of those. It's I think one of them was so I think they're terrific too. And I thought that there were actually more questions, but I just saw duplicates. That was the only new question, except for, there was just one more from Barbara. Says, and this is very self-serving. Thank you, Barbara. For me, I think, because it says, what is the name of the software she was talking about to track donor online activity? And I mean, unless I misunderstand the question, that is the software that I invented a few years back and has been growing quite rapidly. The key tool that we develop for fundraisers is to track not only all donors, but really mostly the major giving donors and planned giving prospects online activity, so that we can help you understand what I call their digital body language, so that you can understand when people are online, what they're clicking on, what their interests are, because people often do online what is different than what they say. So that is us, and we'd be happy to show you how that works. I think that wraps it up, because I don't see any more. Well, one last question just popped in, I see, but it's really about the slides. Melissa's slides, we can make them available, I believe. Melissa, can we share your slides?
Yeah, absolutely. None of that's copyright. None of that is copywritten information. So, and all of it's sourced in the resources at the end.
Okay, that's terrific. And I know that some people were asking if they would be able to see this presentation again. And yes, we will make it available. And we usually turn this into an ebook to make it quickly understandable. You can digest the ebook in just a few minutes if you don't have time to view the whole presentation. So with that, it looks like people are starting to exit. They are getting the hint that that is the end of the presentation.
We're actually winding down, Greg. And I, the two of us.
I never wind down. Neither do you, but
that's pretty much true.
So this is great. There's a lot of people saying thank you right now. So we appreciate you joining us, and thank you very much as well.
Yeah.
And look, Melissa, thank you so much for being part of our little tribe here. We really appreciate you.
I am so excited about all the products you offer and the chance that you offer us to learn more. And that's, I think that the data is the best way to understand who our donors are and where our prospects are. So thank you, and thank you everyone for being willing to invest your own time to do better for your organizations. That's terrific.
Agreed. Thank you. All right. Bye, everybody.